Most of you read this passage, and if you were to glance down, you would see that the rest of the verses are talking about being careful to not be too intimate with people who hate God, who worship false gods. He says that you will have problems in your life if you do that. That's the main message, but I'm not talking the main message. I'm focusing in on those two characteristics of a relationship and applying it to our relationships. So when I talk about bonding to their thoughts, bonding was the depth of commitment when you have with a group of people or another individual. I'm bonded to this person. I'm committed. The more you go through difficulties, staying committed, the deeper the bonding is. The more years you have. But if you, like in a marriage, have worked through raising children, financial difficulties, sickness, buying a home, the more you work through and commit through projects, difficulties, and joys in your life, the deeper the bonding goes. Bonding is something that grows slowly over the years. And the more price you paid, the deeper the bonding. Harmony was something different. A good illustration is if you were to think of two of these guitars up here. Bonding could be represented by taking a rope and tying the two guitars together. The greater the bonding, the greater the tight rope, the stronger the rope holding them together. But harmony would be to tune the two guitars together so they sound good when played together. In the biblical understanding of these two words, the two characteristics of a relationship, yeah, there's bonding, there's commitment, there's people saying we will stay together no matter what. But then a whole different characteristic is, are we in harmony? That harmony is really what I want to emphasize, because it is a characteristic that so many Christians don't understand. They understand bonding. I'm supposed to be committed. I'm going to do this. But sometimes you'll have a marriage, they're bonded, but they haven't been in harmony for years. Harmony. So the two guitars sound good together. Harmony is the result of having two hearts oriented in the same direction. Whenever you take your heart and orient in the same direction as another person's heart. The Greek word that's translated as harmony here is symphonia. We get our word symphony from it. Are two people in symphony? Are their hearts now oriented the same? So when we come together and we worship, if we are orienting our hearts to worship Jesus Christ, we are coming into harmony. And Jesus said, all who become one, all who come into harmony will experience my presence. You see, if we do not, if half of us are daydreaming, if others of us have offenses against each other, if we're in this room not oriented our hearts in the same place, the presence of God does not come. But Jesus said, when my people become one, then my presence will be there, manifesting. We want the presence of God. Where the presence of God is, there is the blessing of God. And the same thing happens in a relationship. That the blessing of harmony is, in fact, what we experience as love. It is the blessing that now your eyes no longer see the problems, but you now see the better characteristics and qualities of the people that you're bonded to. That understanding determines much of your relationship. Now, in biblical thought, one more term I'd like to introduce is the word covenant. You've heard it, but there's an aspect of covenant that we lose through the generations, through the cultural laws, the cultural changes. But the word covenant was a commitment to say, I will keep my heart with you where your heart is. And it was often expressed in, your friends will be my friends, your enemies will be my enemies. I will love what you love. We will become one in heart. That a true covenant, a relational covenant, was we will take our hearts, we will orient in the same direction. Because only if you have your hearts oriented in the same direction will you experience harmony with the other person. You could be a member of this congregation, and you're bonded, you're committed, but you may have been offended. There's a lot of ways to get offended. Somebody in the congregation said something negative to you. And therefore, you come Sunday after Sunday but have a wall in your heart. You haven't experienced the harmony. And when you don't experience the harmony, your eyes perceive the errors of the other person rather than perceive the gifts, the strengths, the good aspects. Because the heart either blinds the eyes or opens the eyes. And so you could say, I'm committed, I'm supposed to go to church, I'm supposed to be part of a community, but you haven't experienced that great joy of harmony. Now, for years, I traveled, and my wife, while she was a school teacher, she would be home during the school year. Now, she's always traveled with me in summer times, on breaks, when she was not in school, but when we were separate, and she was oriented toward the children, she loves teaching school, I love what I get to do, but especially when I was in another country, I'm oriented my heart toward my ministry, or toward the people of the nation I'm in. Her heart is oriented toward the children. Now, nothing wrong with that, but the key is when you come back together, you have to reorient your hearts. Because unless you reorient your hearts to the same thing, you won't experience harmony. The bonding doesn't change. That's long term. It builds over years and years and years. But the harmony can change day by day. If your heart's one way, your spouse's heart's another way, you won't experience harmony. And so we would work at, when we come back together, let's get our hearts in the same place. See, this is one of the reasons why in a mixed marriage, where there's children from one marriage preceding, and then you have children for the union, the new union, there has to be a commitment to say, I will love your children the way you love your children. Because unless there is that commitment, the new relationship will never work. They can be bonded, but they'll never experience harmony. And harmony is where the blessing of God is. That's where the presence of love is, and your eyes now see the good rather than the negative. And so there's got to be a commitment to say, I will love what you love. Now there are ways to help work your way into harmony. Like when we would have a time away and I'm overseas and I come back. You can take ways and have ways of lowering the guards of your heart. Like things you can do, like when you eat with somebody, if it's good food, the guards of your heart go down. Sometimes you're sitting across the table enjoying food, yeah, this is good. You start communicating, you start opening up your heart. A process happens, and you're getting closer to coming into harmony. I like to use the picture of a tuning fork, because if you take one tuning fork and it's vibrating, take another tuning fork that's not vibrating, bring it close to the one that's vibrating, soon both will be vibrating with the same frequency. You and I are like a tuning fork. When you turn your heart in the same place as another person, you come into harmony with them. If you're all watching the same hockey game, you're gathered around the living room, pretty soon you're all shouting for the same team. Harmony starts happening. This is how God created us. Orient your heart, and you will come into harmony with the person. So if I'm coming back from a trip, my wife and I may go out to eat. And then you start talking, and you usually start talking at the surface levels, but you work down to the more serious things. Usually people talk, and men seem to have the worst time of this. If I come home and my wife says, what'd you do today? I said, I worked. Okay? Now that's not what she wants to hear. She wants to hear where my heart went since the last time we talked. I hate that. But I know I'm supposed to do it. And as soon as I share where my heart's been, we'll be back in harmony. It doesn't happen quickly sometimes. Sometimes you got to work your way down. You got to relax with each other. You've got to focus on the same thing. You might remember back when, years ago for some of us, when you're dated, look up at one star together. Pretty soon you got to reach over and grab that hand. Why? Because you're harmonizing on that one star. No, don't you see that star right there? Isn't that cool? Whoa, harmony. Whoa. Learn from this, single people. These things work, okay? That when you orient, and now we're coming home, you talk superficial, just you report the facts. But next, when you're going deeper, you usually then talk about the people you saw today. Who'd you see today? Then you usually go one step deeper, And you explain anybody who made you laugh or made you mad today. Now, on a normal get-together, the first evening you come back together, you don't always get down to the deepest levels, but you usually at least get down to somebody you saw today, somebody who you laughed with, something that frustrated you. But then finally, the deepest level is when you're sharing the motivations of your heart. Is saying, well, I guess I did that because I'm insecure. I guess I don't know what God thinks about me. Or I guess I have this area of my life I haven't cleaned up yet. You don't get down to that level very often, but whenever you do with another human being, you're in harmony with them. Things change. Something has happened between you. Or whenever you are so open-hearted that you laugh with all out-of-control laughter, wah! You're back in harmony. And sometimes you miss that with another individual. Now, because of this, we've always been conscious to love what the other person loves. But I've always kind of joked around with my wife about one thing. I was raised in the country. I was raised quite a ways out of the city, and where we were raised, we always had big dogs. I like big dogs. That's just how I was raised. But sometimes I'd go home and my wife and I'd walk through town, go shopping, and there'd be some lady with one of these little dogs. Okay, now, I'm sorry if you have one of those little dogs, but I don't get it. Okay, I never have. Okay, now I'm sorry. You got to forgive me if you've got a little dog, but just give me a little space here, okay? I don't think they're dogs. I think they're rodents. I got a problem here with this, okay? I don't know what they're good for. I go fishing with one, be great bait. I mean, I've eaten bigger dogs in some of the countries I go to, okay? So it's been a disconnect for me. Now, some of you, you're already hating me, okay? Because your heart's not going where my heart's going, okay? You got to cut me a little slack here. But my wife, when she sees some lady holding one of those things, would go, oh, isn't it cute? I'm dying inside. I don't see the cuteness at all. What if sometime I return from a trip, I come home and she's got one of those things? Do you understand my problem? You see how serious this is? I'm in a covenant relationship. I'm supposed to love what she loves. Whoa, this is hard. I can always tell when we're coming back into this unity, this harmony. I come back and, you start talking, as I said, surface things. You're gradually getting down. You're relaxing. You maybe joke a little bit. But I can always tell when she's now coming up closer into harmony with me. She starts doing some of her, what I call monkey things. Like she reaches across, I'm driving, she'll pluck a hair off my earlobe. Ow! What was that? Okay, that's a good thing, okay? That's a woman marking her territory. She's now taking possession of me again. We're coming back into harmony. There's just something about that where you think, yeah, now back in harmony. But what about this dog? What about this little thing? Oh, I'm worried. But a long time ago I decided, if I come home and she's got one of those, I'll take its little paw, grab it, rotate my wrist, touch my heart, say, I have nothing against you. Yeah! That's what a marriage commitment is. I will love what you love. You see, if you have a child that's married, if you don't love the spouse of that child the way your child loves, you will never have harmony with your child anymore. You can't hate their spouse and expect to have a good relationship with your child. No, it doesn't work that way. Same thing in the body of Christ. Some people think, well, I love God, but I don't love the church. Can't be done. No, you got to love what God loves to be in harmony with God. You want the Spirit of God on you, you've got to love what He loves, then you're one with Him. But if you hate what He loves, you will never have harmony, and there cannot be exchange spirit to spirit. Somehow things get frustrated. And life is all determined by your heart. It's determined by your relationships, it's determined by heart. And you were created by God to have a unity in marriage, a unity in family, a unity in community, and unity with the living God. At the end of your life, when you decide whether you've been a success or not, you will not be looking at how much money you made. You'll be looking at your relationships. You will decide whether you're a success based on your relationships, and those relationships are based on your ability to rule your heart. My ministry is based not on what I know, it's based on my heart. If I allow my heart to get angry at the church because maybe I get hurt, it will come out in my words. If I allow my heart to chase and be swayed away by another woman, that would be a problem. If I get angry, maybe in politics, that will come out of my mouth. If I get angry at a certain culture, that will come out of my heart. But so the more I open up my heart, the more is a love that allows God to flow. Now I want to bring up my wife here, and we're going to give you a little demonstration the rest of our time here. But real quickly, we'll show you how we have come to discover harmony can come back. I said we were married, yes, for 41 years, so obviously she was under 5 when we got married. We're good here. It's always scary when she has a microphone. No, we do a lot together. Now, she was a school teacher, as we said, for over 15 years. So let's go back to that time. And each day, she would turn her heart toward the kids, and I'm turning my heart to my ministry, but also my laptop. I love what I do on my laptop. She calls my laptop the other woman. Okay? You get the idea? I love my laptop. I love what books I'm writing. I love to get into it. Let's say she's with the children this day. I'm working in my office, doing writing, all that. I love it. Now we're going to come back at the end of the day. Now we turn our hearts toward each other. Immediately everything's wonderful. And we like to portray it as if we're standing in water and the water is right up to our shoulders. Our heads are above water. When our heads are above water, that's because our hearts are wide open. I can see her. We can communicate.
He can hear my words. Honey, will you? And he knows what I want him to do, and he's already doing it before I finished my sentence.
It's like we can finish each other's sentences. When our heads are above water, when our hearts are open, it's amazing because wrinkles disappear, shining, she looking good. Just something happens when our heads are above water. But now we go back. Another day, she's at school, she loves the kids, I'm doing what I do, and I'm writing at the end of the day. She comes home, and we come back together. But let's say this day, we don't turn our hearts to each other. We try to communicate, but it doesn't quite work.
We're present in the same room, but we're not really present with one another.
I never share below reporting the facts. She's there hoping I will share things, but when she sees I'm not going to share things, she protects her heart. And now our hearts are not turning toward each other, and somehow we start sinking underwater.
Then when I say, honey, will you put this in the garage? He takes it to the bathroom.
Yes. It doesn't matter what she says. I hear it wrong. Actually, I don't hear it wrong. She says it wrong.
Why didn't you tell me you wanted it in the garage?
Once we're underwater, everything changes and communication is hard. So this day we did not get our hearts open. We go back for another day. I'm working, I'm doing ministry, I'm in the computer, going for it, and the day we come back together. Now it's like we're underwater, and even to open up the heart is scary. It's like you've now protected it for 2 days, and you know if you open it up, you might get hurt. So there's something at risk now. And now that you're underwater, communication is hard. It's like garble. Why don't you talk clearly to me?
Last week it was on the definition of hand. Jen handed it to you.
Yes.
What does handed to you mean?
Yes. Sometimes you can blow out of proportion the littlest thing when you're underwater. It didn't work this evening. Now another third day, I'm working on what I'm working on. And I'm serving God, glory to God. She's being the kids. She's with the school. And now we come back to the house, we're underwater. You know, it's easier just to watch the TV and not talk. It's easier for maybe her to go shopping.
You need bread in the morning.
It's an excuse to go, and I now read the paper, do something, because it's easier to just leave the wall up and be safe. One more day. I'm back doing what I do. She's doing what's with the kids. Her heart's there, my heart's here. We haven't turned our hearts toward each other. It hasn't worked, we're afraid. But now, as we're sinking deeper, we now take a posture. We enter into the relationship that evening in a posture of judgmentalism. I'm in my judgment seat, she's in her judgment seat, and now we're pointing each other's errors. We can see our character flaws.
He loves that computer more than he loves me.
The computer's nicer than her.
It follows your commands.
Yes, it follows my commands. So now we've actually defined what the weakness of the other person is, and we're focusing on it. Now that you have a reason, you have a rationalization, a justification why you should keep your walls up.
And why there's no harmony, even though we're still bonded.
Still bonded.
No music playing.
We're commuted. There's no music. One more day. Of course, this has never happened to us, okay? We're talking about other people. Okay. So, if this happened to you, on the fourth day, I'm back, right in the computer, doing what I do. We come back together, and now we're already in the judgment seat. We were just finding a characteristic in each other that we really were bothered by. I'm focused on her characteristic flaw. She's focused on my characteristic flaw.
You're never climbing my wall.
Never going over it. The wall is high. But as you're sinking now, you're getting a little bit muddy in the bottom. Not only do you identify the characteristic, now you start judging the person and you pass sentence. And the first sentence is, you evaluate them psychologically.
He's obsessed.
The reason she does this is because her mother didn't nurse her or something. Something's wrong. She is psychologically disturbed. Now, when a couple start analyzing each other psychologically, diagnosing the other person, you're pretty much down pretty deep.
Then maybe you might call the pastor for help.
It's usually at that point where they might ask for help, but they might stay there for a year before they ask for help.
I got neighbors that still haven't asked for help.
I know.
Yeah, so here we go.
One more time. I'm doing what I do. She does what she do. We come back together at the end of the day. We're already postured in our judgment seats. And now we're at the very bottom where we judge each other, not just psychologically, but now spiritually.
He's possessed.
She's a witch. Now again, we've never done this. We're just explaining how these things work.
So, now you have to decide how we're going to float back to the top.
Yes.
And you think it's about going and talking and digging your way out of a hole, but it really isn't a good place to do that.
The only way to rise to the top is about the heart. I'm going to come back here someday. Careful.
These leaves look fuzzy, and I remember when I was little, there was a plant in Mrs. Baig's garden that had fuzzy leaves too.
Do you see what she's doing? We're pointing our heart in the same place. In order to rise up, I can no longer point my heart at her problems and her at my problems. We have to find something that we can point at. One thing you can do is you can talk about your children, because every parent loves their children.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not a good subject.
But now, I got something better, because she never did get a lap dog. She got a big dog that acts like a lapdog. So,
Yeah.
we both love her big lapdog.
So my thing that I like to do, when we're at the worst of our worst, we go feed the ducks. Because you can sit and throw out bread and you're famous. They all come up wanting to eat your bread, right? But then you watch the ducks. Oh, did you see that one? Oh, look at that one. And suddenly, that's the most tranquil thing.
Yes.
Or we can go for a walk in the woods. That's
And we point our heart in the same place.
Look at that tree.
You can sit and eat together. Sometimes you go to a movie together. It's okay for Christians to go to movies. Sometimes you just talk about things outside of yourselves in order that you can float back up.
And it's just like this life preserver. It's not digging through the hole. It's just like, it's like special air. What is the air in the balloon? Helium.
Helium taking you up.
Yeah.
This is how God created us.
Heal. It heals you. Helium. Oh, that's
If
good.
you point, it's good. Heal, helium. If you point your hearts in the same place, you'll start rising up. Now, one of the keys that really helped me in this is I realized that when she would be away teaching the kids, I'd be working in my office in the computer, that she would come home and I wanted to finish up what I was writing before I would go say hi. Sometimes it would take 10 minutes, sometimes a half hour. And she's out there hoping I'll come out and talk, and I'm thinking, I want a little bit more time.
And you can't look at him either or say words. You can't talk to him. So, because that will make it longer.
So I'm in here focusing, I'll be out. And I realized one day that every time Linda and I come home, the dog meets us at the door, wagging its tail and happy as it can be. And I thought, I should do that for Linda.
Because when we would be away, as we'd get closer to home, we'd say, Luther's going to be really excited to see us. Right? We were always looking forward to how excited he would be.
Isn't that crazy? But it gave us an idea.
You an idea.
I was in the computer. Every time she would come home, the last 2 years of her school teaching, I would hear the garage door going up as she's coming home. I made a decision. I'm going to meet her at the door like the dog meets me at the door. I made a decision when I hear the garage door, leave the office, leave the computer, run to the door. Hi! I'm so glad you're here!
And it worked.
And it worked. And it wasn't just the physical act, it was in the physical act I made a decision
With your heart.
with your heart to meet her at the door with my heart. So we could always stay in harmony.
You done?
When you're in harmony, everything is good.